All right. Topic Tuesday. I don't remember who wrote this. We'll find out soon,
It
but we're
says Duke.
basically
It
in
says
this.
Duke right there.
Oh, does it? Where does
Yeah,
it say?
right.
Oh, up at the top. Right there. Okay, it's from Duke. He's our resident, not a med student anymore. He has graduated on to be a resident. And so he decided to tag on to our Monday post and talk about the impact of exercise uh, and heat on the human body. No, not exercise, excessive heat on the human body and cardiovascular health. This is really interesting what he put together here. So there's physiological effects of excessive heat, and excessive heat actually poses a significant challenge to the human body, which has to work hard to maintain a stable internal temperature despite the external heat. And when the ambient temperature rises, the body initiates several different, ready for this word, thermoregulatory. That's Duke using those big words, thermoregulatory processes to dissipate excess heat and prevent overheating. Let's talk about some of those. So, the first thing that happens is we sweat. And what happens when you sweat? You have fluid loss. Sweating, which is the primary mechanism for heat dissipation, is sweating. Sweat glands actually release fluid, mostly water with some electrolytes, onto the skin surface, which evaporates, and that's what cools the body. Pretty cool process. But with that comes dehydration. And prolonged exposure to high temperatures can actually lead to excessive sweating, which results in significant fluid and electrolyte loss. So this can cause dehydration, which will actually impair the body's ability to cool itself and can lead to heat exhaustion or heat stroke. It's not something that we want. Okay, the other thing that happens is there's circulatory adjustments. One is vasodilation. And these are all things that we talk about here because we're all on, well, most of us, if not all of us, are on some type of medication that helps open up our blood vessels, helps with heart rate, helps with blood pressure. And so when you're in excessive heat, you're working against these mechanisms. So this is why it's important to talk to your physician. All right, so vasodilation, blood vessels, particularly those near the skin, dilate to increase blood flow, facilitating heat loss through radiation and convection. We're kind of like little mini convection ovens. That's what happens. That's why we turn red. That's why we get all peaked looking, right? We also find that we might have an increased heart rate, and that's challenging for some of us that are on medications to keep our heart rate low. It might cause you to be pretty fatigued, right? So, to maintain adequate blood flow to vital organs and skin, the heart rate will actually increase when you're in these extreme temperatures. This increased cardiovascular demand can actually strain the heart, especially in individuals with pre existing heart conditions. Okay, this is another thing to be mindful of. Another thing to be mindful of is an electrolyte imbalance. And we just said that that can occur when you're dehydrated. If you have electrolyte loss, what happens is the sweating will lead to the electrolyte loss, such as sodium. You might find lower potassium as well as magnesium. And these electrolytes are essential for muscle, muscle function, including the heart muscle, and their depletion can cause muscle cramps, weakness, and even arrhythmias. So if you're finding that in this hotter weather, that you're experiencing more muscle cramps, you're experiencing a little bit of weakness, fatigue, some heart arrhythmias, palpitations, you very well could be having that electrolyte imbalance. You could be missing potassium, sodium, um, and magnesium. So talk to your physician, see if these are extra supplements that you should be taking. Maybe it's just a matter of rehydrating yourself. It might be those moments that your physician could say, increase your salt intake to retain the fluid. So these are why these conversations are so important. This is why we spend time trying to educate you on how you can best communicate, which is advocating for yourself. That's what it all comes down to, full circle. Let's talk about the effects on cardiovascular health from this extreme heat. And one would be heart stress and cardiovascular load. You might have increased cardiac output. And what does that mean? So, to compensate for the reduced blood flow volume caused by dehydration and to support the increased need for blood flow to the skin, the heart might actually work harder. Again, this is challenging for people that are on medications to prevent that from happening. These are all things to think about and talk about. You might find that you're experiencing blood pressure fluctuations. So initially, heat causes a drop in blood pressure due to vasodilation, which we talked about. However, if dehydration ensues, yes, blood volume decreases, and this can actually lower blood pressure further and lead to dizziness and fainting or heat syncope. Syncope. Okay. There are risks of cardiovascular events such as a heart attack or stroke. The strain on the heart from increased workload and electrolyte imbalances can actually exacerbate existing heart conditions, potentially leading to heart attacks or stroke. That's something very much to be mindful of. And heat can also make the blood more prone to clotting, increasing the risk of thrombotic events. Something to think about. Arrhythmias, electrolyte imbalances we just talked about in sodium, potassium, or magnesium can disturb the normal electrical activity of the heart, which causes arrhythmias, which can become life-threatening if not promptly managed. Chronic conditions can occur, and these could be worsening of a chronic heart condition. So individuals that have conditions like hypertension, that would be a lot of us, right? Heart failure and coronary artery disease might experience worsening symptoms during a heat wave. The additional strain on the heart can lead to exacerbation of these conditions, which would require medical intervention. Again, individuals with pre-existing heart conditions are particularly vulnerable, facing increased risks of heart attack and strokes and arrhythmias. So understanding these effects underscores the importance of taking preventive measures during a heat wave, such as staying hydrated, seeking cooler environments, avoiding strenuous activities. When it's this hot, it might not be the best time to do a lot of yard work unless you're in the shaded areas. These are just kind of like little nuances to consider. You don't want to really do these types of activities during the peak time period either of when the heat is occurring. If you have an underlying heart condition, we strongly recommend that you discuss all of this with your provider due to incoming summertime temperatures like we've got going on right now. And this is all that we had for you on Tuesday. And we hope this was helpful, and we hope you join us again this Tuesday, which is tomorrow, which we'll talk about next Monday. So confusing, right? And this was a great article from Duke. Thanks, Duke.